This is exactly how I dropped 10 pounds of fat within 90 days and got absolutely shredded into the shape of my life. There's three things that I did, and this is going to apply to you whether you want to drop 10 pounds of fat, 20 pounds, maybe even 30 pounds, or if you're someone who wants to get ripped and just next level with your physique and your results, right? So, what I'd like to say is I am shredded all year round now. But that's another conversation. I'm going to do another podcast on that because it's a different mindset. It's a different strategy to be able to stay in this shape all year round. Now, this time period I'm talking about is when I got ripped to pieces for the stage, right? It's the same time period I talked about on the last podcast with the 5 foods that I ate. But let's get straight in. No fluff, no BS. Training, right? I want to go into depth with the training piece. A lot of people say it's 70, 80% diet, right? It's bullshit. I don't subscribe to that, right? Training, the way you train, are you training appropriately? Are you doing the right amount of intensity? Are you hitting the body parts frequently enough? Are you recovering properly, right? There's lots of nuance to the training piece. So I don't subscribe to that bullshit. You should take what you're doing in the gym very seriously if you want to drop a significant amount of weight and be able to maintain that. First thing is 3 full body sessions. So they were my foundational workouts, right? The workouts that got me bang for my buck was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would do a full body workout. And how I structured that, I would do 1 or 2 exercises per body part. Now, 80 to 90% of you listening to this, whether you're a guy, girl who wants to get shredded, ripped, or drop however much weight you want to lose, this is going to get you better results. Because when you're hitting 3 full bodies, you've got to have at least a day in between each one. Now, I was doing more than 3. I was doing 6 sessions per week, which I'll get to. But you got to have at least a day in between each full body workout. You could do something else on the days in between, which I'll talk about. But that is what's going to get you best results because you're hitting every body part, right? 3 times in a week when you're doing full body. So you're sending that muscle building signal to every body part. So you less chance of getting imbalancements. But in other words, your body's going to be in more symmetry. But when it comes to the fat loss piece, right? You're actually going to challenge the body more and the nervous system more when you're shunting blood all around the body to each muscle group, right? And the research shows you have to send that muscle building signal every 2 to 3 days to each body part because after 2 days, 3 days maximum, let's say 48 hours roughly, the muscle building signal is dead. It's going to hit its peak, let's say 12 to 24 hours after you've trained, right? So the recovery is where you're actually getting results. In the gym, you're just damaging, your muscles essentially in your body. You're just basically adding the stress to the body. It's that recovery piece that matters. But the thing is, when people do like chest one day, back one day or whatever, they hit the body parts once, they're not hitting that body part again for another week or maybe 4 or 5 days, 6 days, a week in most cases. And then the muscle building signal has died. So you're leaving results on the table when you're doing that. Then I would do target sessions on the days in between, which is what I like to call it. And this is like a signature thing that I implement with clients. Now, the beauty of this is I was looking to get aesthetically into the shape of my life, right? And I did, I achieved that. But then I had to focus on my lagging body parts, right? So if you have body parts which are lagging behind, like let's say that it might be your shoulders, like it was for me, legs a little bit as well, which it used to be for me, then what I would do is I would do it and arms a little bit as well, right? So what I would do, the 3 target sessions, I would target, so that's 3 full bodies, if you're still with me, 3 target sessions. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, full body. They're the intense ones, right? It's moderate to high intensity on those workouts. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'd be hitting one of my lagging body parts. So what I would do is I would hit legs and I'd do it a bit of extra abs as well, right? But I wouldn't go too intense. It would be a moderate intensity. Thursday, I would do arms. And then on a Saturday, for example, I would then hit shoulders. But here's the kicker. It's low intensity. And this is where people mess this up. If you try this and you get the intensity wrong, you're going to get you're not going to get good results. You're going to cross the line and your body's going to be stuck in that recovery trap. Remember, when we're looking to speed the metabolism up, build muscle, get into shape, we need to get your body to adapt, right? Adapting means you do the right dose of intensity so your body can adapt, get stronger, and build muscle. You shouldn't be sore for longer than a day or 2 after each workout. People think, oh, I'm sore for 3-4 days. I couldn't walk after my leg workout. Congratulations, you've done too much, right? Then the body's trying to recover instead of adapt and build muscle, right? So they should aid recovery, those target sessions, because you're just getting a pump on. I would just use machines. I would do no longer than about 30 minutes, right? For example, for legs, I'm not doing an all-out leg session. I'm just going to jump on machines. I'm going to do a leg press. I'm going to leave like 10 reps in the tank. I'm just going to get a pump on my legs, 10 to 15 rep range, say leg press, maybe leg extension, maybe leg curls. Maybe I'll do like, I might even use bands. I might even do like a super band good morning or a super band Romanian deadlift. So I'm just pumping up my hamstrings, right? 30 minutes, done. Pump, leave. That aids recovery. That gets blood flow into the muscles without pushing yourself too far, where then the body has to try and recover and repair again. Then you're stuck in the recovery trap and you're not going to get good results. So that was the layout of my training program. And then, like I mentioned, frequency as well. You've got to hit the body parts at least 2 to 3 times every week. So in this case, I'm hitting some body parts 4 times in a week, right? For example, legs. I'm doing one exercise for legs every full body session. And then I'm hitting legs again, maybe on a Tuesday, but I'm just getting a pump on, right? Same goes for shoulders and arms if you're still with me, right? So that frequency is key. Another way you can do this, which is what I use with clients at OYB, even better, I would even recommend this more because it's harder for you to cross the line with the intensity, is just doing bands. Just get a light pump up with bands on the lagging body parts on the days in between. You could even just do a full body all over pump. And what that does when it comes to fat loss and getting shredded, it supercharges your metabolism when you send the strength and muscle building signal. And you can literally do that with bands. You can do a light pump in front of the TV for 10, 15 minutes on the days in between these full bodies, and you will get insane results if you stick to it, of course. I wasn't training to failure. Even on the full body main workouts, right, the more intense ones, I was always keeping 2 reps in reserve at the end of each set. Now, the research is clear for everyone. If you're looking to build muscle or retain muscle as you're getting shredded and ripped and losing weight, don't train to failure, right? There is a place. Now, I did train to failure probably out of this 90 days for about 1 or 2 weeks. But for the most part, I was leaving 2 reps in reserve. In other words, when you feel like you get to the end of the set, right, you should feel like you've got 2 to 3 reps with perfect form left in the tank when you stop the set. That is the sweet spot, right? Because then you're going to allow your body to not cross the line, number one. You're not going to compromise technique, and you're going to be able to lift more effectively each set. If you're going every last rep in every set, right, you are not going to get as good results. It's easier to cross the line. You're not going to be as consistent with the technique and with the skill of each movement. Remember, each movement in the gym is a skill. Practice the movements, right? Get good with technique. That is the most important thing. The muscles don't know how much weight you're lifting. All they know is how much tension you're applying to them, right? The next thing then is phases, right? People just do random workouts or they're training without intent. Like with my clients or with myself, you need to know what the intent is to each training phase in your training program. For example, for this 12 weeks, I did a 12-week training program, which I designed myself. And that was split into 3 phases. So 4 weeks, you'd be focusing on one intention. The first 4 weeks was how strong can I get? I was doing I think it was a 4 to 6 rep range. And I was focusing on how strong can I get? How much weight can I lift for 4 to 6 reps on every exercise, right? And also what I did there is I would still stop 2 reps short of failure. Even when I'm lifting heavy, I would leave 1 to 2 reps left in reserve at the end of each set. And I still hit some insane strength gains. Remember, if you're looking to get in insane shape, you're not looking to do a powerlifting comp, right? If I'm going to go and compete as a powerlifter, I'm going to absolute failure and I'm lifting hard and heavy. If you're training for aesthetics, you want to be keeping 2 reps in reserve and you can still build insane strength. And that also means you don't necessarily need someone to spot you when you're doing strength. So the first 4 weeks was strength, right? How heavy can I lift hard and heavy? But I was also making the weight feel heavy as well. So I would try and make the weight feel heavy. It's less about showing off in the gym. I'm happy to be the guy who's lifting less weight, who's in the best shape in the whole gym. Yeah, call me superficial, right? But being in shape is still important to me. But back then it was even more important because I was training for a comp, right? So boom, first 4 weeks, lifting heavy. The next 4 weeks, right? If you're with me on this 12-week shred, I was then doing time under tension training. So I was actually doing a 4-2-2 tempo. Now, the only reason I don't do this now is because the sessions take so long, right? Think about it. If you're doing full body and you're doing a 4-2-2 tempo, that means you're doing a 4-second negative. So on the lower end portion of each rep. And by the way, what I will be doing, right, for anyone listening or watching even, I'm going to start doing some videos soon in the gym so you can see what I'm doing, what I'm talking about here, right? But 4-second negative I was doing, right? So if you're still with me, weeks 1 to 4, strength training. Weeks 4 to 8, time under tension training, right? So 4-second negative I was doing, right? So let's say on a squat, It's taking me 4 seconds as I'm squatting down, the negative portion of the rep, the lowering portion of each rep. I'm doing 4 seconds. I'm going to pause at the bottom for 2 seconds, and then I'm coming up for 2, right? Down for 4, pause. That's 8 seconds each rep, my friend, right? That's a long workout, right? It used to take me 90 minutes to do the full body workouts, right? I'm not saying you have to do that. What I'd recommend you do instead is a 3-1-1. It's a bit quicker, but it still has good benefits, pretty much similar to 4-2-2. 3 seconds on the way down, pause for 1, up for 1. That's what we do at OYB with clients when they're doing a time and attention phase, right? But then it's all about weight selection. You can't go hard and heavy. You have to really make the weight feel heavy. And what you should be asking yourself in terms of the intention when you're doing time and attention training is, how much tension can I apply to my muscles? Remember, your muscles are growing and building primarily on the lowering portion of each rep. That's where you're getting most of your results. The 3-second part, when you're going slow on the way down, the research is clear, right? So focus on that negative portion. But what's also really important, which my man Arnie used to say in this book behind me, yeah, shout out Arnie, the Encyclopedia of Modern Day Bodybuilding, dope book. He was big on the pause at the bottom. Now you have to pause at the bottom because then you're going to get that isometric contraction where you can feel that tension, and it forces you to prioritize technique, right? That's the beauty of doing the time and attention training. But for me and my body type, again, everyone's body type is different. I respond better to the 8 to 12, 8 to 10 rep range, slow reps. The final phase then, leading up to the comp and the final part of the shred, right? Weeks 8 to 12 of this 90 days, I then was focusing on doing supersets, right? So I was doing brutal. So I was doing like supersets on every body part, and it was a higher rep. Well, so it was like 8 to 12 reps into 10 to 15 reps a superset, right? But what I actually did, I wouldn't necessarily recommend people try this, but it depends on the person. See, there's so much variance. A lot of people can't handle this amount of volume. I was doing like a full body workout. So I would do like a barbell squat, for example, right? Into a front loaded dumbbell squat for the full body, right? 8 to 12 reps of each, about 8 to 12 reps of each, actually, right? I'd be stopping 2 reps short of failure on each set. And then I would rest for about 90 seconds. And I would do like 3 or even 4 sets of that. Then I would go on to back, for example. I would do a cable row, for example, right? 10 to 15 reps or 8 to 12 reps, let's say, straight into a single arm dumbbell row, right? For 8 to 12 reps on each arm. Now, you have to be well connected to your body. A lot of people are going to feel that more on their bicep when they're doing that. But obviously, having competed so many times, having known my body and lifted weights for 20 years, I know my body really well. So I'm still hitting the lats when I'm doing that. Then I might do a chest press, like a bench press, for example, with a bar, 8 to 12 reps, straight into a bench fly. Then I'll do a shoulder press, dumbbell shoulder press into a lateral raise, and I'll do the same for arms. Yes, they're long sessions, right? But that's what I did, and that's what works really well for aesthetics. Like, if you want to do that program right, then a little disclaimer here, you have to get the intensity and the volume right, and it's probably going to be tough for you to get right. But that's what I did leading up to the show. So then what that did, the intention there was to get a really good pump on, get more vascularity, and essentially send a muscle building signal, right, in a different way. There's different types of hypertrophy. When you're lifting hard and heavy for a lower rep range, then you are going to elicit something called myofibril hypertrophy, right, which is when you're basically adding more muscle fibers. So your muscles look kind of more dense, right? And hard when you do generally when you do a lower rep range for heavy weights, but you're still going to build muscle. People think that you don't build muscle on a low rep range. You do, right? It's you need to do that rep range. It's simple as that. And then 4 weeks after that, then the intention would be obviously 8 to 10 reps, slow reps. And the intention then would be how much tension can I apply to my muscles? And that's called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And then the same goes for the last phase. I'm getting a good pump on. I'm doing high reps. It's fitness-based, by the way. When you're doing the high reps, forget about cardio. Your ass don't need no cardio when you're doing high reps. Or even if you're doing like a 15 to 20 reps, forget about supersets, just 15 to 20 reps on every exercise, right? Good luck with that, especially with squats. That is cardio. Your heart rate's through the roof. It's up for sustained periods. And that's that, right? The other thing I want to finish with the training piece is this is kind of like controversial, but I would drag the fast out as long as I could after training. I'm not recommending you necessarily do this, but I would do this because I'm then in my fat burning zone. So when I'm in the gym and I've depleted my glycogen levels, right, from lifting weights, in other words, you've utilized the carbs that you've eaten in the gym. And then after that, then you just I would go for a walk, for example, and I would then just drag the fast out for maybe 2 to 4 hours. No, muscle's not going to fall off your body. That's an absolute myth. It's bullshit. If your goal is fat loss, then it can actually be a good tool to drag the fast out a bit after training. But look, this is splitting hairs. The most important thing is, I'll come to the nutrition piece next, but like, don't go trying to like drag your fast out and then only eating once or twice a day. Don't do that. It's not ideal if you're trying to lose weight. You're going to end up being starving and making poor choices for most people. But I would still eat 3 meals a day, but I would drag that fast out for maybe 2 to 4 hours after training, right? As long as I could. And then I know my body is utilizing fat for energy because I've just depleted my glycogen levels. My body's essentially used up most of the carbohydrates stored in my body, to simplify it. And then it's eating away at my fatty tissue, right? So people say, oh, muscle, you don't. No, you're not. Muscle doesn't fall off your body that easy. It doesn't work like that. Right. And then I would obviously have a good hit of protein when I eat that meal. And dragging that fast out can be a good strategy after training, right? So guys listening, no, muscle's not going to fall off your body. You're not going to waste away by doing that. If you're looking to lose fat, it can be a good strategy to do, providing you're hitting enough protein. Yes, there's some research to show the 1 hour protein window after that for muscle protein synthesis. If you want to build muscle, yes, could that make a difference? A little bit, maybe, but it's very much splitting hairs if it comes to building muscle. But we're talking about fat loss here, right? Your goal with fat loss should be to retain muscle. You may build a little bit of muscle here and there, depending on where you're at. But your goal should be to retain muscle, to lose the fat, and do it in a way where it's sustainable and you can keep it off. So dragging that fast out after training, providing you're not doing crazy stuff like high intensity training. What I mean is you lift weights and you drag the fast out after eating after that, right? That's what I would do leading up to comps. So the next part then I want to talk about is nutrition. Now, we touched on this on the last episode, but I want to get into the 5 foods that I ate, right? So obviously, I'm not going to get into the 5 foods that I ate. I covered that on the last thing. But again, protein and fiber, right? They're my best friends when I'm looking to get shredded. So I'm eating plenty of vegetables, but more importantly, I'm hitting a high protein target. So at this point, I'm eating 1.25 pounds of protein per pound of body weight, roughly. So in my case, at this point, I was weighing about 195 pounds, maybe 200 pounds max. Let's just say 200 pounds to round it off. And I was eating 250 grams of protein, right? Which works out 1.25 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And I'm eating plenty of meat. I mentioned this last time. I'm not going to talk through exactly what I was eating, but the protein sources were mainly beef, some salmon here and there, mainly beef and chicken thighs though, right? So grass-fed ground beef or steak, chicken thighs, probably 90% of the meat I was eating or 80% of the protein I was eating was coming from that. Maybe 10% from salmon, get my omega-3s in, and I enjoy salmon. And then it was like protein powders and stuff just because I enjoyed the taste. And I would even throw a protein bar in once or twice a week and maybe some Halo Top. I shouldn't be shouting these companies out because it's ultra processed foods, my friend, right? I want to be clear here. Protein bars and Halo Top ice cream, for example, it's ultra processed foods. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but I was doing it because I enjoyed the taste. And I did it once on the weekends. So then I could get some mouth pleasure and feel like I could just, oh man, have a little bit of a break psychologically and look forward to something on the weekends, right? Because obviously I'm not going out partying and stuff like that, right? So I would do that and that worked for me, right? In terms of the protein intake and then fiber, lots of vegetables, lots of potatoes. And my macro split was sitting around about, it was about 35% carbs actually, around about 30% protein and 30% fat, give or take. Right now, this is something I want to touch on. I always talk about, and the research is clear actually with macros, that when protein and calories are equated for, fats and carbs don't make any difference to fat loss or body composition, which is absolutely true. So if you're looking to lose fat, you've got to make sure you're hitting enough protein to blunt your appetite so you don't overeat, first and foremost, right? Because if you're not eating enough protein, you're going to overeat fats and carbs and calories, right? Simple as that. Having enough protein. So if you're in a deficit, I'd recommend aiming for, I would say at least 1.25 to 1.5 grams of protein, ideally, if you're in a deficit. If you eat 1 grams of protein per pound of body weight, you can kind of get away with that, but I recommend a bit higher to play it safe and blunt your appetite. And to make sure, the second point I was going to make in terms of the importance of hitting protein in the deficit is to make sure you don't lose muscle. Of course, you need to retain muscle at all costs. Because if you start paring down muscle, number one, you don't look as good at all aesthetically. If you lose muscle, don't want to be doing that. Number two, then your metabolism slows down and it makes it harder then because you get away with less calories. Keeping muscle on your body costs your body more calories. So That's really important. But the macro split I was hitting, like I say, I was only having 30% fat. So listen up on this. If you, especially carnivore, keto people, right? You eat a lot of fat. And that's okay if you feel like you do well on low carbs and you feel like you can lose weight and keep it off. Congratulations. Most people are not going to get shredded, though, and get to that next level by just keeping carbs out of their diet forever. Most people. Some people it'll work okay with, but to optimize and to perform well in the gym, to actually feel good, to potentially even get better sleep and drop your stress hormones like your cortisol and stuff like that, having carbohydrates is going to be beneficial, right? Especially if you're looking to get really shredded. If you're looking to get ripped, people listening to this, right? Next level shredded, you're going to need some carbohydrates, right? Most people are. So, like I say, I was having about 250 grams of carbohydrates at this point, and I was getting that through mainly potato. I was having sweet potato. I would throw in some fruits. I would have some on the weekends. Maybe I would have some honey and stuff like that as well. Like sometimes I would throw that in, some dark chocolate here and there. And yeah, like I said, Halo Tops and protein bars here and there, right? But that's it. It was mainly coming from potatoes, and I enjoyed eating those, right? And that's why I put that into my 5 foods last time. But what I wanted to talk about is fat and carbs. They're metabolized differently. So if you're someone who eats keto and carnivore and low carbs and you've never tracked your food, you've got to be very careful. This is where people go wrong. I can't tell you how many people have reached out for coaching where they've actually eaten carnivore or keto. They've lost a lot of weight, but then they've either, number one, got stuck and plateaued with their fat loss, or number two, they've actually started gaining weight again. And the thing is, they're overeating calories, right? They've got to a point where they've lost weight. So when you're losing weight, your metabolism slows down, by the way, right? Because it gets more efficient with calories because it's going into survival mode. But number two, fats are where the calories are at, and fats are metabolized differently. So when you eat fats, if you're having high fat, for example, it's easier for your body to convert those fats into body fat. It's converted way quicker. It's got something like a 95% efficiency rate of you eating a lot of fat and that converted into fat. So let's say one day you go over on calories, and this happens, by the way, like I said last time, when you're looking to lose weight, you shouldn't be hitting your calories day by day. It should be over a week. So if to lose weight, you've got to hit 2,000 calories. Over the week, look at that at 14,000 calories. But let's say one of those days you go into a surplus, which, by the way, can be a good thing to do if you're doing it strategically, or as long as you're staying in that deficit. Let's say one of those days you decided, right, I'm going to bank my calories up, like I said on the last episode, and I'm going to save some calories for the weekend so I can have 3,000 calories one day, for example. If you have loads of fat on that day, right, and you go into that surplus, it is a bit easier for your body to convert those fats that you've eaten, the fatty acids or the fat, into body fat, right? Because it's a different process how it's metabolized. I'm not going to go into that. With carbohydrates, long story short, it takes a little bit longer for the body to metabolize the carbohydrates and turn that into body fat. So it's got a lower percentage of efficiency for that to turn into body fat as quick and as efficiently, right? So we have to bear that in mind. And also, it's the most important thing is you got to look at benefits. If you're in or performance or how you're going to feel when it comes to you losing this weight and getting shredded, carbohydrates, there's clear research on this, and I've tried and tested it with myself with clients. Metabolic flexibility is really important, right? That's why carb cycling, for example, can work really well for a lot of people. Having maybe higher carbs on training days or even one day on the weekend, psychologically, it gives you a break from, having low carbs all the time. But number two, performance, right? You are going to get more strength in the gym generally, right? When you're eating more carbohydrates. Even some people before training, particularly women, seem to do better with this, and women seem to do worse with fasting. They seem to do better with having some carbohydrates and maybe even a little bit of protein powder before training, so it's fast absorbing, and they feel stronger. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. I was having high carbs because I was intentional about what I was doing. I want to perform well. I want to feel good. I want my muscles to look full as well. As you get super lean, carbohydrates obviously turn into water, so they make your muscles look fuller. And also sleep as well. I don't want my stress hormones to be too high. I'm already putting myself into a deficit. So if I'm going to be constantly having low carbs, and if you've got more stress coming in, like if you're being in a prolonged calorie deficit, or you've got normal life stress, by the way, like working and stuff, right? Or having kids, right? Having low carbs all the time can add fuel to that fire as well, right? So that's what I wanted to touch on. Yes, just to clarify that, as long as you're hitting protein and you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose this weight. But when it comes to carbs and fats, like I say, ideally, if you're in a deficit, I would say to hit at around about 30% fat, 35% fat. ideally, I mean, it does depend on the person. I don't want to throw random numbers out there. For most people listening, though, let's say you had about 30% fat, 30% carbohydrates, right? And 40% protein to play it safe in terms of your total calories, right? Then that would work well for most people as a macro split and a deficit, right? But again, like I can't give it once, like to you as an individual, but for most people, that's going to do really, really well, right? But people are different, right? Some people do better low carbs, some people high carbs, but for performance, for how you feel, for giving yourself a psychological break of constantly trying to cut out carbs all the time, because that shit gets tiring. And then also remember the conversion from fat into body fat, right? So take those things into account. And I want to wrap that one up there, right? So finally then, what I was doing on the weekends then as well, water intake. I wanted to touch on this for nutrition as well. Relentless with tracking my water intake, right? So I was having whatever I was having water-wise. Let's just say I was having a lot, right? Because leading to a bodybuilding comp, I was having 6 liters, right? I know it's a bit excessive, but even now I have that, 6-7 liters. I would track that meticulously and make sure I hit my water intake. And also I would make sure I had a liter of water upon waking within the first hour upon waking. Have a pint straight away and then another pint within that first hour upon waking. I still do that now. In fact, I have a liter within the first kind of 10 minutes of waking of water. Why do I do that? Number one, you wake up dehydrated. Number two, if I was to reach for caffeine straight away before I've hydrated, I'm then just adding more stress to my body. And also I'm interrupting my body's natural processes of, basically increasing cortisol by itself, right? As you wake up, your cortisol levels are high. And then your adrenal system is also in overdrive in the morning as well. So if you're having a coffee before hydrating, then you're adding fuel to the fire. Your energy levels are going to be way better if you just drink water first. Say 500 milligrams to, I know you guys are in America, right? I don't know ounces. 500 milligrams to 1 liter of water within the first, like as soon as you wake up, ideally, right? That'll change the game for you. And then if you have a coffee, I would have that after that, and my energy would be way, way better, right? So just to summarize the nutrition piece, I've covered everything there, right? I'm not going to go over all again. I want to make sure I haven't missed nothing here. Meal prep. I wanted to touch on that as well, right? So I actually used a meal prep company to prep my meals at this point, right? Now, some of them, they're going to be garbage. You're going to be eating a load of shit with them. This one was pretty good. Why I did that? Number one, it would save me time, right? It would save me a lot of time. So I didn't have to slog in the kitchen prepping my meals all the time. I would still prep a lot of my meals. Now, don't get me wrong, leading up to the comp 2-3 weeks out, I was cooking all my own meals myself. I want to know exactly what's going into it. But this is a strategy that I use for some clients as well. Even if it's like one meal a day, if you're someone who's not consistent with your meal prep, or you find yourself on the go and caught off guard and then making poor choices, like a meal prep company can be helpful. Also, it tasted good. It's got to taste good. You got to enjoy the meals. And I knew what I was getting. I could actually track this. The important thing here is tracking meticulously as well. If you're looking to lose weight, you got to track, right? You got to track food. I'm just going to say it how it is. And this meal prep company, I could find them on MyFitnessPal. So I could track them on there and I know roughly what I was having. Now, I'm still going to be out. I'm still not going to be as accurate as if I'm weighing my food meticulously and tracking it. Yes, that's ideal for accuracy with your calories. But a meal prep company, even if it's one a day like I do with some clients, I'll say, right, even if we just have your lunchtime meal prepared for you, so you don't have to slog in the kitchen, and we're more consistent, and then all you've got to do is sort your breakfast out and your dinner, right? Done. So a meal prep company saved me a lot of time and effort, and it made it much easier for me to hit my macros and for me to be consistent and to just actually have some downtime as well. Let's be honest. Like, you're prepping all your meals all the time. You got no time for yourself, my friend, right? And it becomes just unsustainable. So last thing then is on the weekends, I would make sure I actually made a point of doing this. Now I've changed now. I'm not going to go into where I'm at now and how I eat now. That's another podcast. But back then I used to like eating out, right? So I would eat out, let's say, I don't know, twice a month, and with my girlfriend at the time, and we would go out and eat whatever, right? But I would eat like a naked burger. I looked at my food diary for you, right? So I think I went out one time, I had like a nice steak. I had a naked burger, right? With no bread. And with loads of cheese and stuff, and then like loads of sides. Then I think it was cheese, olives. I think I had some like roasted potatoes, which had some sauce on them and shit like that. But it tasted great. But I still knew then I wasn't having something like a pizza. Now, don't get me wrong, you can have the odd pizza, but a pizza is just completely empty calories. You're getting no nutritional value. Unlike if you go out and have a burger, even if you had the bread with it, right? Fine. Even if you had the bread with it, at least you're getting red meat. You're getting loads of essential nutrients. You're getting some nutritional value. You're getting your protein. You know what I'm saying? So I would just I would drop my guard, eat out, but I would still be aware of, okay, I still want to get some level of nutritional value. I don't want to just have, now you could have a pizza. And like I say, I would do that every now and then, but that was very rare. To be honest, in this 90 days, I don't think I had any pizzas, maybe one. And that was it, but that's empty calories. I would have the odd poke bowl and stuff, and just some meals that I like to eat out. I would make sure I factored that in and done that, right? People, the biggest mistake they make when they come to lose weight is, right, I can't do any of these things ever again. I'm going to cut out all the things I enjoy. If you're someone who doesn't enjoy eating out, fantastic, but that's not going to work for you, right? So factor that in, bank your calories up for that occasion, but still be mindful. Also, alcohol, what I did as well for the last 4 weeks, I think I would have like the odd drink here and there in this 90 days. Now, again, I don't really have the desire to drink at all, really. I do here and there, like if I go on holidays and stuff. But back then, I would like a drink. When I ate out, for example, that every 2 weeks, I would have 1 or 2 drinks. I wouldn't go crazy, maybe 3. But what I did for this is the last 30 days of that strat, I just cut alcohol out altogether, right? So that's a good strategy that I'll sometimes use with clients. Now, they'll sometimes have a drink here and there when they're shredding, and that's fine, as long as we factor that in and we don't go too crazy and take the piss, right? But I would say, right, let's just abstain. Let's try and do a 7-day abstinence from alcohol. Boom. Let's push that to 30 days. And it's always going to have tremendous value, right? Doing that. The last factor here, right, is mindset and routine, right? Now, mindset, the key thing is prepare, as the saying goes, right? You know, fail to prepare, then you're going to prepare to fail, right? Pre-planning and preparation is everything. We all know that, but we don't fucking do it. And the research is clear on this now. If you want to lose weight, a significant amount of weight, pre-planning is the most important thing. Going back to eating out, even if you're going to eat out, looking at the menu in advance, right? Look at the menu in advance so you know, and you can plan ahead what you're going to have and then factor that into your calories and stuff. Look, I know this sounds a bit, oh man, this sounds like a lot. Factor it. Yeah, well, guess what? You know, if you've been living a certain way and you've been overweight for a long period of time, you got to take this fucking 10 minutes out of your day and track your food, right? You just got to do it, and you got to plan ahead. Look at the menu in advance. Plan your meals in advance. Like I said before, or get a meal prep company to help you, right? Organize that in advance. Going into your week on a Saturday, Sunday, how's my week looking? How am I going to get my meals in? You need to be looking in advance, and it's not about being perfect. You might get caught off guard once or twice, but you need to be on the ball for the most part with these things. So that's what I would do, is I would get my meals prepared, get the meal prep company ordered in advance. So that's done, ready for the week. Understand roughly what meals I'm going to make myself. I wouldn't make them in advance, but I would make sure I'd done that in advance. And then I would make sure the night before everything is ready to go. And I still do this now. My gym kit is ready, right? I'm not placing any barriers in the way or adding any room for excuses. The gym kit is ready to go from the night before, right? I've got that ready for the next morning to train. My meals are ready, so I know what I'm eating the next day, right? And the next week, I've got my meals prepared. I know roughly what I'm doing. I've got a meal prep company to sort that out for me. I am also factoring in, this is a big one as well, right? What I say to people, particularly a lot of my clients who are like busy, they're doing well in their professional life, but they're busy people. They might even have kids. Even sometimes factoring it into your calendar. So what I would do is I would factor my workout into my calendar around my meetings. And back then I used to train clients in person, right? PT in person. And I would put in my calendar the workout. I would even factor like 2 hours sometimes for the workout to give me time to do whatever else. Boom, I'm putting it in there. And when I dial things in to get this shredded as well, what I even did is I put my meals in there sometimes when I was going to eat and put that into my calendar. You've got to prioritize these things. It's not, I know it sounds a bit above and beyond. You don't necessarily have to factor everything in every single meal. I know that can be even more overwhelming, but even just having a window where you're blocking out your calendar, right? So you're not having meetings and shit that can get in the way so you can get your workout in. Now, what I would say to most people is what I would do if I wanted to get shredded, get insane results like I even do now. The first decision you make, go and train, get it done in the morning, right? Before work, before the day gets away from you, before you can make excuses, before you can put the barriers in the way, get it done in the morning, and then you'll feel better for the day, number one. And number two, you got more chance. It's the most important thing. More chance of being consistent when you get it out the way first thing, right? So you don't leave it to chance. So that's kind of what I would do around the structure and organization, right? And then what I would also do as well, my theory is, right, when I'm looking to get shredded, and I even look at this for clients, we've got to maximize the calorie output. That's why strength training, number one, is going to be the most important thing, right? Doing that every single day, ideally, even if it is a band session, 10 to 15 minutes at your desk in work. I'm giving away some gems here, right? I'll get clients doing this right? I'll get them doing the band sessions on the days in between. So it increases the calorie output. It increases the likelihood that they build muscle because they're adding more volume to their week without overdoing it. It also boosts their energy and performance and mental clarity as well, the band session, because it's just blood flow to the brain and it's just a light pump. So that's number one for the calorie output. Strength training every day. If you want to go to the gym every day, great. Even better, right? If you get the right intensity, and that's going to get your body burning more calories. But number two is steps. Move more, eat more. That's my mindset. When I got shredded on this occasion, and when I was leading up to the last show where I did it really smart because I learned so much from the other ones, I was doing 15,000 steps a day. Now, for a lot of you, that might sound overwhelming. I'm not saying you have to do that, right? But maximum movement throughout the day, maximum steps to increase that calorie output so you can actually get away with eating a bit more. Simple as that, right? Simple as that, right? For the intention of fat loss. So I would do 15,000 steps. So I added an extra 30-minute walk into my day and I factored that into the evening. So in the evening after my evening meal, I would put a podcast in, and I was fortunate at the time I lived right next to the beach in Coogee. Podcast in, 30-minute walk down the beach. Beautiful, right? Down the beach, podcast in, gather my thoughts, maybe do some stuff on my Instagram. You know how it goes, right? And that's that, right? So factor the steps into your daily movement. It doesn't have to be an allocated walk either, right? Walk more throughout the day. Pace more throughout the day. If you can add an extra, say, 2,000 steps, 3,000 steps onto your daily output, or even a 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? That increases your calorie output drastically over the space of a week. You're looking at, depends on how much you weigh, but all in all, in my case, that was thousands more calories my body's burning because I'm doing that extra 30 minutes. Let's say that's an extra 3.5 hours of walking over the space of a week. That means I can eat way more, and it's much easier and more simple for me to stay in that deficit. And on top of that, when you move more, you feel better, your energy levels, and then I'd be digesting my food. It really aids digestion as well. So walking after eating is really good because that helps you feel more satiated. It balances your blood sugar levels out. It increases insulin sensitivity. There's loads of research on this. So if you can walk after you eat, great, even if it is only 10 minutes, right? And then finally, it was the nighttime routine, right? What's going on in the bedroom, right? Not what you're thinking. I'm talking about sleep. The nighttime routine, I would have, even what I do now, right? I've got a nighttime blue light blocker glasses. I would put them on 3 hours before bedtime. They got an amber lens on them, right? They block the blue light. So that's gonna improve my sleep quality because I'm not getting the blue light exposure. I would come away from all TV, laptop, phone at least an hour before bed. I think I was even doing 90 minutes. I'd recommend 90 minutes if you can, but 60 minutes minimum, no electronics. And then within that 1 hour to 90 minutes, I'm getting my shit ready for the next day. I'm getting my gym kit ready. I'm getting myself ready for bed. And then I'm going to read a book and wind down and really focus on that quality of sleep. The quantity of your sleep is bullshit if your quality is not there, right? So setting yourself up for success is always going to come down to that foundation of sleep. And not to mention, even one night's poor sleep is going to completely change your hormone profile. It's going to increase ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and it's going to reduce leptin, which is the satiety hormone. So it's going to make you eat more the next day, even one night's poor sleep, right? So if you're not prioritizing sleep, you're not going to get these results and be able to keep them. The end, right? And I'm going to end that there. That was bang on. All right. So what I wanted to say is, well, if you want to know exactly what you need to eat, right, the foods you need to eat for your metabolism to get the fastest, most sustainable results possible with your fat loss and muscle gain, I'm going to give you a free metabolic assessment, right? And a metabolic score. So once you've done this assessment, it gives you a score, which then tells you exactly what you need to eat, exactly what you need to do to not just lose the fat or build the muscle and optimize your metabolic health, but how to sustain that and how to do it in the fastest way possible, right? So all you got to do is click the link beneath in the show notes to get your free metabolic assessment, my friend. If you're serious, of course, that's if you're serious about getting into the shape of your life. I want to wrap this up now, right? Check out this next episode, which I'm sharing here, which is where I talk about how cardio makes you fatter, right? And also the ultimate way that you need to lose fat if you've hit a plateau, exactly what you need to do food-wise in more detail, and how you can utilize cardio more as a tool, but avoid certain types of cardio which actually slow your metabolism down. Definitely check out this next episode, which I'm sharing here. And ladies and gents, I'm going to leave it there. One more thing, please like and comment. I'd love to know your feedback. I really want to make these episodes better. Like so we can get more people to see it, and comment beneath with your feedback, my friend, or any questions. I'm happy to answer them. All right, speak soon.